My alien classmate brought my crush to my bed. The unexpected delivery. The chronometer on Ravi Sharma's desk blinked 2:34 a.m. in pale blue numerals, each second a reminder of how unprepared he was for tomorrow's quantum mechanics final. Empty coffee bulbs floated in the low-gravity zone near his window, testament to 6 hours of failing to memorize equations that seemed to rearrange themselves whenever he closed his eyes. His small dorm room at Celestial Bridge Academy felt smaller than usual, walls pressing in with the weight of impending academic doom. The door panel chimed once before sliding open without waiting for permission. Ravi's head snapped up, heart lurching, expecting a residence advisor come to cite him for the illegal caffeine synthesizer humming in his corner. Instead, Theron Vrask ducked through the doorway, all lean muscle and easy grace despite carrying someone in his lower arms. The Zenthari's copper-toned skin caught the lamplight, the geometric patterns along his shoulders seeming to shift and flow like living tattoos. His upper arms gestured apologetically, while his lower pair cradled an unconscious girl against his chest with surprising gentleness. Not just any girl. Serafina Quill. Ravi's mouth went dry. He'd spent an entire semester sitting 3 rows behind her in advanced stellar cartography, memorizing the way her pearl-white hair caught the light from the projection dome, how she tucked it behind her pointed ear when concentrating. Her skin held an otherworldly luminescence even in sleep, like captured moonlight given form. She wore a simple silver dress that pooled around her like liquid starlight, and her breathing made a soft, musical sound. "Vask, what?" Ravi's voice cracked embarrassingly. He stood so fast his chair toppled backward in the low gravity, drifting lazily toward the ceiling. "Easy, Sharma." Theron's voice held that perpetual note of amusement, as if the universe was one long private joke only he understood. Lumini rejuvenation cycle happens once every orbital period. She'll wake up in about 6 hours, good as new. But why? Ravi gestured helplessly between them. Why is she here, my room? Theron laid Serafina on Ravi's narrow bed with surprising reverence, arranging her hair so it wouldn't tangle. Her bioluminescence painted soft patterns across the ceiling. Her bioband. He tapped the delicate silver bracelet on her wrist, which pulsed with gentle amber light. Lumini safety protocol. During the cycle, they're completely vulnerable, so the bioband locks on to the biosignature of someone they trust implicitly, someone they feel safe with. His dark eyes found Ravi's, glinting with secrets. Your door was the only one it would open. The implications crashed over Ravi like a tidal wave. That's impossible. She doesn't even know my name. Clearly, she does. Theron straightened, and something shifted in his expression, softer, more serious. The bioband doesn't lie, Ravi. Whatever you think she feels or doesn't feel, this says otherwise. Ravi couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Serafina Quill, the brilliant Lumini who'd won the Chancellor's Prize, who spoke 4 galactic languages and could navigate by star charts she'd seen once 3 years ago. She'd programmed her most vulnerable moment to bring her here, to him. Theron moved to the door, then paused. "Zenthari tradition," he said quietly. "When we deliver someone to their chosen sanctuary, we give a blessing." Before Ravi could protest, Theron stepped close. His upper hands came to rest on Ravi's shoulders, while his lower hands gently touched Serafina's temples. He pressed his forehead to Ravi's first, warm, grounding, and whispered something in his native tongue that resonated in Ravi's chest like a struck bell. Then Theron turned and touched his forehead to Serafina's, repeating the words. When he pulled back, his eyes held something bright and unreadable. "There, now you're both marked as sanctuary blessed." He moved toward the door, then glanced back with that familiar smirk. "Take care of her, Sharma, and maybe talk to her when she wakes up instead of just staring this time."
The door sealed with a soft hiss, leaving Ravi alone with his racing heart and the girl who glowed like captured starlight in his bed, trusting him with everything.
The vigil of whispered truths. Ravi stood frozen for what felt like an eternity, watching the gentle rise and fall of Serafina's chest, the way her luminescence pulsed in rhythm with her breathing. 6 hours. He had 6 hours to guard someone who'd somehow chosen him, and he had no idea what to do with his hands, his racing thoughts, or the terrifying hope blooming in his chest. He pulled his chair close to the bed, settling into what he imagined a proper guardian would do. Serafina's face in repose held an unexpected softness. In class, she always seemed untouchable, her brilliance creating a barrier no one dared cross. But here, with her defenses down, she looked almost fragile. Her lips curved slightly, as if dreaming of something pleasant. The chronometer read 3:47 a.m. Coffee wouldn't help now. His mind was too loud, too full of questions. Why him? They'd never even spoken beyond a polite nod when she'd borrowed his stylus once. He'd spent that whole week not washing the hand she'd touched, feeling like an absolute fool. His gaze drifted to his desk, to the leather journal half hidden under textbooks, his private shame, pages filled with amateur poetry he'd never show anyone. Words about distant stars and impossible dreams, about pearl-white hair and the musical sound of someone's laugh he'd only heard from 3 rows away. Before he could second-guess himself, Ravi retrieved the journal. If she was truly unconscious, if she'd never know, maybe he could finally say the things he'd swallowed for 4 months. His fingers trembled as he opened to a page marked with a pressed blue petal from the Academy Gardens. "I don't know if you can hear me," he began, voice barely above a whisper. "You probably can't. This is probably insane," he laughed nervously. "But Theron said you trust me, and I've spent 16 weeks trying to find the courage to say hello. So maybe this is the universe giving me practice." He read the first poem, stumbling over words he'd written at midnight, about watching someone shine too bright to approach. His voice grew steadier with the second, about wanting to know if her laugh sounded the same up close. By the third, he'd forgotten to be embarrassed, lost in the honesty he'd never been brave enough to speak. "I see you in the cartography dome, and you're mapping whole galaxies like it's breathing," Ravi continued, his throat tight. "And I'm just trying to not fail out, wondering what it would be like if you looked at me once, really looked, if you'd see anything worth noticing." Serafina's bioluminescence flickered just for a moment, brightening slightly. Ravi froze, but her breathing remained steady, unchanged. He told himself it was coincidence, some natural fluctuation in her cycle. He kept reading, poem after embarrassing poem, confession after buried confession, how her voice made him forget where he was, how he'd memorized which calf she preferred, which table she studied at, the way she chewed her lower lip when working through difficult calculations. Every small detail he'd hoarded like treasure, too afraid to do anything but watch from afar. "I don't know what I did to deserve you choosing my room," Ravi whispered as the chronometer turned toward 5 a.m., "but I promise I'll keep you safe. Even if you wake up and realize the bioband made a mistake, even if you don't remember any of this, I'll still be grateful. For tonight, for knowing that maybe, just once, I was someone you trusted." His hand hovered near hers, not quite touching. Then, gathering courage he didn't know he possessed, Ravi gently wrapped his fingers around hers. Her skin felt warm, and that strange heat spread up his arm, settling directly in his chest like a second heartbeat. To his shock, Serafina's fingers twitched. Then, slowly, they curled around his, holding on. Her luminescence pulsed once, twice, in perfect synchronization with his racing heart. Ravi's breath caught. Impossible! She was unconscious. But her grip tightened slightly, and her lips curved deeper into that mysterious smile. In the pre-dawn quiet, he could have sworn he heard the faintest whisper, his name, shaped in a voice like music.
He held her hand as Dawn began painting the viewport pink and gold, reading poetry until his voice went hoarse, feeling for the first time like maybe the universe hadn't made a mistake after all.
The first rays of true sunrise spilled through the viewport when Serafina's eyes opened. Not gradually, but all at once, brilliant silver irises that caught the light and held it, glowing with their own inner radiance. For a moment, she simply stared at the ceiling, consciousness returning in visible waves. Then her gaze shifted sideways and found Ravi. He jerked back, suddenly aware he was still holding her hand, that he'd been caught disheveled and exhausted after talking to her unconscious form for hours. "I'm sorry, I wasn't. Theron brought you here, and your bioband, it—" The words tumbled out in a panic. Ravi Sharma. His name on her lips stopped his heart. Her voice held the same musical quality he'd imagined, but richer, warmer. She sat up slowly, pearl-white hair cascading over her shoulders, and her expression held no confusion, only a gentle knowingness that made his face burn. "You read me poetry." His mouth opened, closed. You heard?" Lumini rejuvenation isn't exactly sleep. Serafina's luminescence brightened with what might have been a blush. We're aware, just unable to move or speak. It's protective. She looked down at their still joined hands. "I heard every word." Humiliation crashed over him. Every desperate confession, every pathetic admission of watching her from afar. "Oh, stars, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." "You wrote poetry about my laugh," she cut him off, and when she met his eyes, tears gathered in hers like captured light. 16 poems, I counted, about someone you thought would never notice you." Her free hand rose to her bioband, touching it reverently. "Ravi, I programmed this 5 weeks ago. 5 weeks of hoping my cycle would come, hoping you'd be here when it did." The room tilted. "But we've never even talked." "Because I'm terrified." The admission seemed to cost her. "Everyone sees the Chancellor's prize winner, the girl who never makes mistakes. But you," she lifted their joined hands between them, "in cartography, you gave Jessa Morven your notes when she was sick. You stayed late to help Professor Kane repair the projection dome for no credit. You draw little stars in the margins of your work when you think no one's watching." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You're kind, Ravi, genuinely kind, and I've been too afraid you'd see right through me to some disappointing truth underneath." "Disappointing?" Ravi couldn't help the incredulous laugh. "Serafina, you're extraordinary." "I'm lonely." 2 words, stark and honest. Brilliance is isolating. People don't talk to you, they perform for you. But your poetry. She reached out, fingers ghosting along his jaw with feather-light touch. "You wrote about wanting to know if I take my tea sweet or bitter, what books I read for pleasure, if I sing when I think no one can hear." Her thumb traced his cheekbone. "You wanted to know me, not what I could do, just me." Ravi's hand rose to cover hers, holding it against his face. "Sweet," he said softly. "I notice you add 2 sugars. You read historical fiction, I've seen the covers. And yes, you hum when you're calculating orbital mechanics. It's the most beautiful sound I've ever heard." Serafina's breath hitched. Then, with the same decisive brilliance she brought to everything, she leaned forward and pressed her forehead to his. The gesture felt ceremonial, significant. Her luminescence flared bright, spilling over them both, and Ravi felt that strange warmth from before intensify, spreading through his entire body like liquid sunlight. "In Lumini culture," she whispered against his skin, "this is how we say, 'I choose you.' In human culture," Ravi breathed back, courage finding him at last, "this is how we say it."
He closed the remaining distance and kissed her. It was gentle, questioning, neither of them quite believing this was real. Serafina made a soft sound, her fingers sliding into his hair, and the kiss deepened into something more certain. She tasted like starlight and possibility, and when they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, her luminescence had brightened to near blinding. "I've imagined this," she admitted, resting her forehead against his again, unwilling to create distance. "Me too." Ravi's hands found her waist, solid and real and here, every single day. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other and the golden dawn as the academy began waking around them. Two people who'd spent months orbiting each other from afar, finally colliding into something neither had quite dared to hope for.
The door chime startled them apart 3 hours later. Serafina had migrated fully into Ravi's arms, her head resting on his shoulder while they talked in quiet voices about everything: childhood planets, favorite constellations, the terror of exams they'd completely forgotten about. Her luminescence had settled into a soft, contented glow that made the whole room feel dreamlike. "That'll be Theron," Serafina said, but made no move to leave the circle of Ravi's embrace. "How do you know?" "Because he's been planning this for weeks." She tilted her head up, eyes dancing with amusement. "He cornered me after advanced propulsion, told me I was being cosmically stupid about you, and offered to help. I thought he was joking." The door opened before Ravi could respond. Theron entered, carrying a tray with 3 steaming mugs, looking entirely too pleased with himself. His upper arms balanced the tray while his lower arms gestured expressively. "Well, well, looks like sanctuary protocol worked exactly as intended." "You're shameless," Serafina accused, but she was smiling. "I'm efficient." Theron distributed the mugs, some kind of spiced tea that smelled like cinnamon and starlight. He settled into Ravi's desk chair, folding all 4 arms in apparent satisfaction. "So, did you two finally use words, or should I come back in another 16 weeks? Ravi's face burned, but Serafina just laughed, that musical sound he'd written poems about. "We used words, and other things." "Serafina!" Ravi choked on his tea. Theron's grin widened. "Good, because we should probably discuss the claiming mark." The room went very quiet. Ravi glanced at Serafina, who'd gone still. "The what?" "The blessing." Theron's expression shifted, seriousness settling over his features. "When I touched both your foreheads last night, I performed a Zenthari bonding ritual. It's not something we do lightly." He leaned forward, dark eyes intense. "Among my people, it's a recognition of potential union, a mark that says these souls could harmonize." "Could?" Serafina's voice was careful. "The mark doesn't force anything, it just opens a door." He reached up, touching his own temple. "You both should have a silver symbol here now, faint but visible in certain lights. 3 circles intersecting, past, present, future, unity across time." Ravi's hand flew to his temple. He couldn't feel anything, but when he turned to the polished metal panel by his desk, there it was, delicate silver lines forming an intricate knot, barely visible unless you knew where to look. Serafina had one too, perfectly mirrored. "Why would you do this without asking?" Ravi didn't sound angry, just confused. "Because you're both brilliant fools who needed a push." Theron stood, moving to the viewport. His shoulders tensed, and when he spoke again, his voice carried unexpected vulnerability. "But also because I felt the resonance when I touched you both." He turned, and something raw flickered in his eyes. "Zenthari are empathic. We sense emotional harmonics, and you two, you're a perfect fifth, rare, beautiful, the kind of harmony most people search lifetimes for." "And you?" Serafina asked gently. "What did you feel?" Theron's laugh was soft, almost sad. "A major 7th, dissonant with you two, but in that way that creates tension before resolution. I felt," he paused, seeming to weigh his words, "like I could belong to that chord, if you'd have me." The admission hung in the air. Ravi's heart thundered as understanding dawned. "You marked yourself, too." "I did." Theron's hand went to his own temple, where an identical silver symbol gleamed. Presumptuous, maybe, but Zenthari don't claim lightly. When we feel that pull, he met Ravi's eyes, then Seraphina's. I've been alone a long time. Traitor families don't really do attachments, but watching you two orbit each other, feeling what I felt when I performed the blessing, it was like coming home to a place I'd never been. Seraphina stood, crossing to Theron with that same decisive grace. She took his lower hands in hers, studying his face. In Lumini culture, bonds can be dyadic or triadic. We believe souls find each other in the configurations they need. Her luminescence brightened. I've felt you watching too, Theron, in the observatory, during lab sessions, the way you make sure Ravi eats when he's too focused on studying, how you always save me a seat near the viewport because you know I need to see the stars. You noticed? Theron's voice cracked slightly. I notice everything. She glanced back at Ravi. We both do. Ravi stood slowly, his analytical mind trying to process emotions too big for equations. 3 people, 3 souls marked by the same symbol. It should have felt wrong, complicated. Instead, it felt like the final variable clicking into place, the equation finally balancing. He crossed to them, completing the triangle. Human culture doesn't really have a framework for this, he admitted, but we're in space now, between worlds. Maybe that means we get to write our own rules. He took Theron's upper hands, feeling the same warmth that had sparked with Seraphina. Different note, same harmony. You brought her to me, you blessed us both, and I think maybe you've been as lonely as we were. Theron's composure cracked. He pulled them both into an embrace, 4 arms creating a shelter around them. Cosmically stupid, he muttered. All 3 of us. Seraphina's laugh bubbled up, and then Ravi was laughing too, and Theron's rumbling chuckle joined them. They stood in the morning light, marked and chosen, and finally, brave enough to claim what the universe had offered.
3 hearts, 1 dawn. The quantum mechanics exam felt surreal, like something happening to someone else. Ravi sat between Seraphina and Theron in the testing hall, acutely aware of the matching silver marks they all bore, of the invisible threads connecting them. Every time doubt crept in during a difficult problem, he felt warmth pulse from the mark, encouragement, confidence, belonging. Seraphina finished first, as expected, but she waited by the door. When Ravi emerged 20 minutes later, she took his hand without hesitation. Theron joined them 5 minutes after that, and they walked through the academy corridors like that, connected, complete. Other students stared, whispered, but none of them cared. I need to tell you both something, Seraphina said as they reached the gardens, where blue petals drifted in the artificial breeze. About the bioband. I didn't just program it for safety. I programmed it to choose between you. She looked at Ravi, then Theron. I couldn't decide, didn't want to choose. The band was supposed to tell me who I truly trusted most. And? Theron prompted gently. It tried both your doors simultaneously. Her voice was barely audible. The algorithm couldn't differentiate. You both registered as equal sanctuary. She laughed, watery and relieved. I thought it was malfunctioning. Theron had to manually override it to bring me to Ravi's room first. So you knew, Ravi said to Theron. You knew the mark would connect all 3 of us. I hoped. Theron's hand found Ravi's free one, completing their circle. Hope and knowledge aren't the same thing, but yes, I felt the potential. The harmony was already there, just waiting for the right resonance to activate it. They found their usual study spot under the observation dome, where the Academy's position gave them a view of 3 different star systems. But tonight, none of them opened their tablets. They simply existed together, learning the geography of each other. Theron told stories about trading routes through nebulae, how his family had disowned him for refusing an arranged political bond. Seraphina confessed the pressure of being Lumini royalty, how every achievement felt like barely meeting impossible expectations. Ravi shared his scholarship anxiety, the weight of representing Earth in a place where humans were still considered novelties.
We're all running from something, Serafina observed, her head on Ravi's shoulder while her hand traced patterns on Theron's arm. Maybe that's what brought us together. Or maybe, Theron countered, we're all running toward the same thing: home, belonging, each other. As the stars wheeled overhead, they made plans, shared quarters next semester, combined research projects, Theron teaching them Zenthari meditation techniques, Serafina showing them Lumini star navigation, Ravi sharing Earth's ancient poetry, building something new from 3 different worlds, 3 different hearts beating in synchronization. I spent so long afraid of not being enough, of reaching for something too bright and getting burned. And now? Serafina asked. He looked at them both, Serafina glowing like captured starlight, Theron solid and steady with humor dancing in his dark eyes. The matching marks on their temples caught the light, proof of something chosen, claimed, real. Now I think maybe brightness isn't something to fear. Maybe it's something to become. He pulled them both closer, together. Serafina pressed a kiss to his jaw. Theron's hand tightened around his. Above them, 3 different constellations aligned in a configuration that only happened once every 100 orbital cycles. A cosmic coincidence, or perhaps the universe nodding in approval. They stayed until dawn painted the dome pink and gold. 3 souls marked and bound, and finally home. The path ahead would be complicated, navigating cultures and expectations and the sheer logistics of a triadic bond. But looking at each other in the early light, all 3 of them felt the same absolute certainty. Some equations balance perfectly. Some harmonies are worth every dissonant note it takes to reach resolution. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust that the universe knows what it's doing when it brings the right people together in exactly the right way at exactly the right time. The stars had chosen, and they had chosen back. Lessons from the stars. When love arrives in unexpected forms, trust its wisdom over your fear. The bonds worth keeping are those that make you brave enough to be seen completely. Sometimes the universe writes better love stories than we could ever plan for ourselves. Home isn't a place, it's the hearts that recognize yours and choose to stay.